Welcome to Faith and Freedom, an audio feature produced by the Wagner Faith and Freedom Center located on the campus of Spring Arbor University. The Wagner Faith and Freedom Center serves as the nation's academic voice for faith, family, and freedom. And now here's your host for Faith and Freedom, Professor William Wagner.
Welcome to Faith and Freedom. I'm your host, Will Wagner. Today I want to talk to you about something that goes to the very heart of our culture, our Constitution, and our faith. I want to talk about marriage, procreation, and the right of parents to control and direct the upbringing of their children. Because if we understand these three things properly, we understand something essential about freedom itself. Now let me begin with this. We are living through a civilizational struggle. There is a collision of worldviews out there. Folks, this is not merely a policy dispute. It's not a disagreement about education. It's not merely a clash between political parties. It's a battle over truth itself. It's a battle over whether marriage means what God ordained it to mean, whether procreation remains a sacred gift rather than something that's managed by the state, and whether children belong under the loving care and the authority of their mother and father or under some kind of ideological supervision of a government regime. So let's be clear about something right from the start. When government officials presume the authority to sexually confuse, to morally form, to medically redirect, or to spiritually undermine children without the knowledge or consent of their parents, government has crossed a line it has no authority to cross. It's not education, it's not neutrality, and it's certainly not compassion. It's usurpation of the family. And when those actions are hidden from mothers, when they're hidden from fathers, it's not merely wrong, it's a direct assault on the family. And I believe it's also a direct assault on the Constitution and on the created order itself. Now, we're told today that these developments represent progress. We're told that they are inclusive. We're told that parents who object are fearful, or maybe that they're just old or outdated. But truth does not become falsehood because some authority in the culture mocks it. Falsehood does not become truth because some kind of powerful institution repeats it. And so today I want to speak plainly. Boldly, yes, but also faithfully, with compassion. Because Scripture commands us to speak truth, but to do it in love. And love does not lie. Love does not surrender children to confusion. Love does not remain silent when government officials hide life-altering decisions from parents. Love tells the truth, protects the vulnerable, and resists evil, and it does it with courage, folks. And that brings us to the first truth I believe that we must recover. The family is not the creation of the state. It's just not. Government did not create marriage, and government did not invent parenthood. Government did not author the natural bond between a mother and a father and a child. Long before there was an American republic, before there were legislators and Congress and bureaucracies, school boards, there was the created order. In that order, God created man and woman, and He created them in His very image. He joined them in marriage. He commanded them to be fruitful and to multiply. And He entrusted parents with the responsibility of controlling and directing the upbringing of those children. Marriage, procreation, and parental authority are not political conveniences. They are foundational realities built into the moral design of human existence. And our founders understood this. The common law of our nation reflected it, even before we were a nation. Natural law confirmed it. And for much of our history, American jurisprudence respected it. Because a free society depends on recognizing that some things are pre-political. They come before government, before politics. Some rights just don't come from rulers. Some institutions do not depend on government permission, and some duties are so sacred that government exists not to redefine them, but to protect them. To protect them. But once a nation abandons that worldview, folks, everything becomes and begins to unravel. And that is exactly, I think, what we're witnessing today in the culture. The culture is just really unraveling. And the Cultural Revolution has worked very hard to separate what God has put together. Marriage has been severed from procreation. Sex has been severed from responsibility. Children have been severed from parental authority. And now identity itself is being severed from biological reality. But truth remains whole even when culture fragments it and tears it apart. Marriage is not merely a romantic arrangement. It's the covenantal institution that unites man and woman as the natural foundation for family life. Procreation is not a technical byproduct of desire. It's part of God's design for the continuation of life and the flourishing of society. And children are not self-creating autonomous units to be shaped by bureaucrats and ideological administrators. They're sons and daughters entrusted to parents. And historically, the law recognized all this. The Supreme Court once described marriage as the most important relation in life. It declared that marriage and procreation were fundamental to the survival of the race, and it called marriage one of the basic civil rights of mankind. But once the law loses sight of that moral order, it soon loses sight of the child as well. And that brings us to the central issue of our time, something I think that is becoming a front burner issue in state after state after state, and that's the question of, are parents still going to be the people that are going to be the ones that decide what's in the best interest of their child, or some government regime going to do it for them? There are a few sentences in American constitutional law more powerful than this one from the Supreme Court's decision in Pierce versus Society Sisters. The court there said, the child is not the mere creature of the state. Let me say that again. The child is not the mere creature of the state. Think about that. The child's not the state's creature. Not the school district's creature, not the counselor's creature, not the government's preferred ideology's creature. The child is a human being made in the image of God, born into a family, entrusted first to parents. And for generations, the Supreme Court recognized that parents possess a fundamental right to direct the upbringing of children. That is not some kind of historically weak tradition. It's a mighty constitutional inheritance that we have to recognize. And it treats the family as the cornerstone of society. And it rests on a moral truth that every fit parent instinctively knows. Fit parents are naturally, morally, and ordinarily best equipped to raise their children, much better than some government bureaucrat. Not perfectly, but rightly. And yet today, unfortunately out there, we see something that I think is deeply troubling. It's unfolding in all our schools and unfolding in the culture. Government authorities are facilitating gender transitions, identity changes, and deeply personal decisions involving children without parental knowledge or consent. That's not what some are calling just educational overreach. I think it's much more than that. It's not merely educational overreach. It's direct challenge to parental authority. And it places government in the role of a moral tutor. It places government in the role of a spiritual rival. And it puts the government in the role of an identity engineer. And those are not the role of government. And it's profoundly dangerous when government takes on those roles because children are impressionable. Judgment matures slowly. You know, the brain develops in young kids at a very, very slow rate. And so especially areas of judgment are not developed until, much, much later. And yet we've got government authorities facilitating these incredible, life-changing, often permanent changes, well before the brain is even developed in a way that a child could be able to exercise judgment. Adolescence is not wisdom, and confusion is not liberation. A civilization that tells children that they are mature enough to reject their parents' moral guidance, but not mature enough to buy cold medicine without restrictions. Right along the way, somewhere culture has dropped something, and one of the biggest things that it's dropped, the biggest things that it's abandoned is reason. When you're telling children that they're mature enough to reject their parents' guidance, when their brain is not developed to a place where they can exercise their own judgment. And a school that undermines the family is not serving a child. It's exploiting the child. And often exploiting the child for some, political advancement that the government regime wants to advance. That conflict is not merely legal. It's much bigger. It's a collision of worldview, folks. And if you think that this is just a battle of politics, it's not. The Bible talks about us, battling principalities. And we are certainly in our culture now in a collision of worldviews. And that is where we'll pick up after the break when we go to the final wrap.
Growing deep roots means anchoring yourself to Jesus Christ, the source of all life and learning. Here at Spring Arbor University, faith and academics work hand in hand, grounding you in truth and wisdom. With a close-knit Christian community by your side, you'll grow strong, ready to face life's challenges. At SAU, you won't just learn, you'll thrive. Grow deep roots at Spring Arbor University. Visit arbor.edu today.
You're listening to Faith and Freedom, and I'm William Wagner, your host. Today we're discussing marriage, procreation, and parental rights, and why the future of freedom depends on protecting the family. Let us now turn to what we call the final wrap. At the deepest level, the conflict we're witnessing today is about worldview. One's worldview says that rights are inalienable, that they come from God. Another worldview says that rights are constructs. They're created and redefined by those who are holding power. And so because those are holding power in the school district, they get to say, I know what's best for your child, and you don't get to hear about it, and we're not even going to tell you what we're doing to change your child. And so one worldview says the family precedes the state, and the other says that family is useful only so long as it conforms to state-approved norms. One worldview says that freedom must be tethered to truth and responsibility. The other says that freedom means self-definition without any kind of moral limits at all. And once society abandons the inalienable worldview, there's no principled stopping point. If marriage can be redefined, if procreation can be severed from the moral order, if parental authority can be displaced by government institutions, then liberty itself becomes unmoored from truth. And liberty unmoored from truth does not remain liberty for long. It becomes license, then confusion, and then coercion, and then, unfortunately, bondage. History teaches that lesson over and over again. But there's good news. The family remains the first government, the first school, the first church a child ever knows. It is where love learns duty. It is where freedom learns responsibility, and where truth is first spoken and lived, which means the future of freedom still runs through the family. So let us speak. Let's defend. Let's teach. Let's raise our children in truth. Let them be compassionate in the way they express that truth, but let us raise our children in truth. And let us do so with courage, conviction, and love. Because the child is not the mere creature of the state, and the family does not belong to Caesar. Till next time, this is Professor William Wagner for Faith for Freedom for such a time as this.